First of all, please hand in your notes. And you've all prepared a pronunciation improvement plan. There are a few of you who we've asked to make some improvements in the improvement plan to make it more specific. We need a week-by-week listing of which things you'll be working on each week. In addition, in case I didn't make it clear, I want you to give a weekly progress report. You need to make a weekly progress report on your plan. How well did you do working on this particular feature, like, for example, using the intervocalic tap for T, or lengthening vowels before a voiced sound, things like that. So that may be your item for the week. And then at the end of the week, when you're getting your notes ready for Monday, make a progress report. Say how well you have done if you forgot to do it, or if you started remembering more and more often, if you maybe need to extend it another week or so. So we need a weekly progress report. Everybody has that? It's really important. Because otherwise, it's just something on paper. You need to really put it into practice, and then we want to see if you can do what? What's our goal in doing this? Is the goal to make you think of the rule each time and then go through a logical thought chain and then make the correction? Is that the goal? What is our goal in these weekly corrections that we're trying to make in our improvement plan? Is it to remember the rule and then go through the rule and then apply the rule and then say it? Is that our goal? That's a middle part of the process. What is our goal? Right? There's a word I'm looking for. I'm fishing for a word. Habit, that's right. Habit isn't the one I was thinking of, but that's very good. We want to automate it. It needs to be automated so that it comes out without thinking. And without thinking is not really accurate. It's without system 2 thinking. Remember the system 1, system 2 dichotomy we have in our brain? System 1 does things by intuition, by feel. We're not conscious of what system 1 is doing. Things just pop out of our mouth, and they sometimes surprise you yourself, right? You sometimes say something, you think, where did that come from? 我怎么会把这个话讲出来? Has that ever happened to you, or never? Or do you sometimes make a decision and you're thinking, why did I make that decision? Usually I'm so careful. 可是你有点冲动就去做了某一件事情, right? That's system 1 who's taking over sometimes. Maybe it's getting tired of system 2 being too slow, too analytical, too logical, and too careful. Sometimes system 2 is so slow. System 1 just gets tired of it, and then you do something on impulse. 你就冲动之下，你就去做某一件事情. So I'm just saying that as an illustration of the difference between system 1 and system 2. It doesn't mean that they're two separate parts of your brain, but functionally there are two separate parts of your brain. It doesn't mean that organically you have two different places we can label. But there's a part of your brain that is working mostly unconsciously that does things automatically because it's been trained by habit. The other part will think a long time and then decide and then do something. And in Taiwan, people tend to use which part to speak English? System 1 or system 2? System 2, mostly system 2. And that's why people will say things like, how can you expect me to remember to add S to verbs in the third person singular? How can you expect me to remember the past tense? I don't have time. Students have told me that for decades. 我哪有时间去想那么多? So they just give you the 原型 constantly, right? Everybody following me? Yeah, I appreciate the nods. If you just nod, it's good enough. You know, your head doesn't really shake, but I can see from this distance. So if you're constantly relying on system 2, everything is going to go too slow. And that's not good enough for language performance. You have to have system 1 trained so that without conscious thought, system 1 is mostly unconscious. It doesn't mean you're not thinking. System 1 does think, but it's been trained to do things automatically. You don't really feel it when it happens. It feels like there's no effort involved. It does take a lot of effort, but you're not feeling it because it's not conscious. So we have to switch this habit of when you're speaking English using careful, analytical, and very slow system 2 to system 1 where it pops out all by itself. 至少感觉上是这样子. And then you get it right because it's been trained correctly. So it's that part of the training that we're trying to do with this plan. Our goal is to automate these changes, things that you didn't do before. You might do if you thought long enough, but we don't have time to think long enough, so they never get changed. That's the pattern I've observed over the years. So in my kind of work, what I'm doing is I'm trying to make students aware of the things that they should change to make their English easier for the listener, more 标准. They become aware of them, but they don't use them. So it's this bridge from awareness and theory to practice that's been missing. And this is an effort now to see if this weekly plan and follow-up can help bridge your now conscious awareness and your theory over to actual practice, automation, and habit. That's the whole point. This is something like the answer I was trying to elicit from you. So that's all clear what we're trying to do. We need a weekly update, a progress report on how you're doing automating things one by one. Too many at once, your brain can't handle it. But if you focus on 1 or 2 a week, your brain can do it. You can just remind yourself, 这个礼拜的主题是什么是什么. You can remind yourself, and slowly, System 1 will get the idea. It will start doing it by itself if you repeat it often enough. So, a weekly progress report on your pronunciation improvement plan. 题外话, I've put up some new mini conversations. You can get to them through Freshman English or through the lab links on the homepage. And that's for those of you who want short dialogues to practice spoken English with. You can use that for echo method practice and for automation practice because it's short, it's colloquial. It will have you just popping up with correct English sentences with the correct tense and the correct person, etc., without having to think if you practice them often enough. That's just one source, and they're short and they're easy to use. So mini conversations through Freshman English or the Freshman Lab links. And very quickly, vowels and consonants, okay. Chapter 3, any problems? I'll officially ask you on Wednesday, and I remember today that it's Monday. So vowels and consonants, okay. Don't leave it off till the last minute. Your brain needs time to process it because if you do it earlier, your brain will be working on it subconsciously and you'll come up with more questions by the time it's time for you to actually write the summary and your questions and hand it in. Okay, so vowels and consonants is okay, I'm going to assume. And I'm going to give you a web page assignment. I want you to read carefully web page number 4 because we've already covered ejectives and plosives and clicks now. Not thoroughly, that would be really difficult because especially with clicks there's so many variations. But so that you understand the airstream mechanism involved in each one and you hear each one so you recognize it when you hear it in speech. I haven't put radio links up, but I plan to do that soon. There are already a lot of links on page 4 where you can hear naturally occurring ejectives and plosives and clicks. A lot of them are really fun. For example, you can link to a YouTube click of The Gods Must Be Crazy, and you will hear, I think it's it's not it's Kong, I believe, language, a click language being spoken by native speakers. At first I wondered if it was real because the movie was so funny and so silly. I wondered if the click languages were just made up, but they're real. So you can listen to that. And there are a lot of other links as well. That's all I have to cover before the course. Anybody have any comments or questions? And I just want to ask you quickly about the dictation last Wednesday. Do you think you learned something from it? Probably a lot of you made some systematic mistakes, like writing DA for da, right? Probably a lot of you made mistakes like that. But do you think now that you're ready for another dictation of that type and you probably wouldn't make the same mistakes? Or are there still some things that you're not so clear about? I'll just read through the items on the dictation one more time and just think in your head how you would transcribe them and see if you have any questions. If there are any two sounds, any pairs of sounds that you still don't distinguish well. So you don't have to write it down now. I'm just repeating the quiz so you can decide if there's something you need to review. 1, ah. This is an ejective. 2, ga. Voiced, velar, initial stop, right? Okay? Ba. Unaspirated is the important thing here. So it's unvoiced, unaspirated, initial, bilabial, stop. Okay? How about ta? Voiceless, Aspirated. Alveolar, initial stop, okay? Ka. It's an ejective. Place of articulation? Velar. And it's voiceless by implication. We just assume that. Initial stop. And the ejectives are pretty easy to recognize, aren't they? At least the way I read them. I read them pretty clearly. They're less clear sometimes if they're at the middle, in the middle, or at the end of a word, towards the end of a word. That was my experience with Georgian. I can't speak for other languages. At the beginning of the word, usually they're pretty strong and clear. In the middle or towards the end of the word, they're not always as strongly ejective. They're still ejectives, but it's usually not quite as obvious. And we have a similar situation with a different kind of stop in English. For example, at the beginning of a word, a voiceless aspirated stop in English is pretty strong. For example, take, take. But if you put it in the middle or towards the end of a word, it's less aspirated. The aspiration is not as strong. It's not voiced. It's definitely not voiced. But it's less strong. And it's hard to give an example with T because that becomes a tap so often. Or say, let's say a K sound or K sound. So could, but vacation, vacation. It's still stressed, it's still aspirated, but it's not as strongly aspirated as could. Could, vacation, could, vacation. And if it's not stressed, it's even less aspirated. It's still voiceless, but it's not as strongly aspirated in the middle or towards the end of the word. But don't overdo it because, as I may have mentioned, a common pronunciation in Taiwan of stupid is stupid, stupid. It becomes voiced, and that's not right. So don't voice it. You can reduce the aspiration, but it does not become voiced. Not stupid, it's stupid, stupid, okay? That was for 6, da. What is that? Voiceless, unaspirated, alveolar initial. And 7, ka. Voiceless, aspirated, alveolar initial. 8, da. Voiced. Unaspirated is assumed. Alveolar initial. Okay, stop. And 9, ah. Go ahead. Okay, it's an alveolar ejective, initial stop. And 10, ba. Voiced. Bilabial. Okay, initial stop. Very good. So I think this dictation is okay right now. There's no big problem. We will have another one on Wednesday. And this time it will include implosives. Let's go to the course. That's it. Unless we have any comments or questions. Anybody? Time to read. All right, tell us where we're starting. And I saw some discussion on the pronunciation of arytenoid. And my conclusion is we're sticking with arytenoid. However they say, one of the pronunciations is arytenoid. Honestly, in my memory, that's the only way I've ever heard it pronounced in videos and in lectures that I've heard that talk about the arytenoid cartilages. So we're going to stick with that. If you want to adopt a different one, that's your choice. Okay? Let's go.
Page 149, second paragraph. Amy, murmured sounds occur in English in the pronunciation of х in between vowels, as in ahead and behind.
Okay, be careful with that. I know you wanted to emphasize it so everyone could hear it, but don't make it fricative because h is not fricative. If we have a fricative, then we have frication. But we don't really have that with h. All we have is breathing. All we have is breathing. Okay, like you're sleeping and breathing through your mouth. And not breathing too hard. It's just not. What is? How do we describe that? It's an X. That's right. And it is what? What kind? A voiceless. First of all, it's voiceless. Velar fricative is. So be very careful. If you're just reading the sound h, or if you're reading it in a word, it often happens among some Taiwanese speakers that they say heart, heart, her. Don't do that. It's just heart and her. Okay, I know you're trying to be clear, but you need to be careful so it doesn't become something else. Go ahead.
In most of the speakers of English, we have been able to observe.
Can you make that more connected? Because that's all part of the same clause.
In most of the speakers of English, we have been able to observe.
All right. It makes sense to pause there, but we cannot pause too long because this is all part of a dependent clause. 这是一个从属子句里面的，其实必须要连在一起的。Often when we have of, although it's a preposition, we often don't pause before it because 因为前面后面的那几个 constituent 那些成分是关系太密切了。So if we pause, it sounds like we've got two different clauses. I want you to listen to these two for contrast. Here's the first one. In most of the speakers of English, we have been able to observe. Actually, that makes grammatical sense, but it's not what we're trying to say here. What are we trying to say? We've actually omitted a word. What word have we omitted? Who or that, which 都可以，都通. And I have told you that whenever you omit a word like this, you need to pause. However, 要看情况, because this is a 从属子句, it cannot be too slow and too carefully phrased because we will then get the impression that we've got two clauses. So, in most of the speakers of English, we have been able to observe that 可能是这个意思, right? We could make it into that meaning, but is that what we mean here? No. So, for that reason, we have to 弥补一下这个问题. And we have to sort of speed it up to make it clear that we don't want the listener to think it's two clauses, but we want to keep this one clause together. So I would read it like this. In most of the speakers of English, we have been able to observe. So we have no continuation rise until observe. Otherwise, your listener may get confused, or they may think you're confused. We call that garden pathing. We think it's going this way, but suddenly the sentence shows us it has a different structure, different grammatical structure. So this is an important point. I mean, I'm not picking on one person. I'm just pointing out something you need to watch out for. You need to keep a dependent clause together when you're reading. One more time.
In most of the speakers of English, we have been able to observe.
Perfectly clear now, right? Go.
The h in these words is made. The h.
Not h, it's yeah. Relax your tongue, because if you're going h again, it'll become velar. So
the is this word.
Once more.
The in.
You're still making it velar. Yeah, right.
The in these words is made with the vocal folds slightly apart along these entire length.
Here you can pause again a little bit. Slightly apart, pause. Along here is a 介系词 that's not of, right?
Slightly apart along their entire length.
Length.
Good. But still continuing to vibrate as if they were waving in the breeze.
All right, so I've been picking on phrasing here. Let's make sure we got the meaning. He's saying that in his observation, 根据他自己的观察, and that's the way I have to preface a lot of things I say, 根据我的观察, because maybe I have blind spots and I've only been watching one thing but missing another, 顾此失彼. But he's saying in his observation, although h is theoretically voiceless or voiced? Voiceless, right? But it's made with the vocal folds slightly apart along their entire length, but still continuing to vibrate. If it is between what? Two voiced sounds, vowels. So if you put a h between two vowels, the h is probably going to be partially voiced, right? So they're continuing to vibrate, the vocal folds, as though they were waving in the breeze. So we haven't completely opened the vocal folds to make an open glottis. They're partly open, and we're still getting some voicing due to assimilation from the vowels around it. So instead of we're getting something like ahead, ahead, ahead. Okay?
The term voiced H is something used for this sound. The term voiced H is sometimes used for this sound, but it is somewhat confusing as there is certainly no voicing in the usual sense.
All right. Let's watch intonation here. I'll be especially picky with Amy since she's almost native-like in her English. The term voiced H is sometimes used for this sound. The term voiced H is sometimes used for this sound. The term voiced H is sometimes used for this sound. Everyone?
The term voiced H is sometimes used for this sound.
This 不要那么重. That's a habit you guys are going to have to work on. This 不要看到 this 就直接放重音，因为 this 经常是个虚词。Used for this sound, it just sounds confusing. We don't know why you're stressing this. And the listener, even though it may be subconscious, they're going to be confusing. Why did they stress this? We really pay attention to stress in English. And you can put this in your notes if you were not really strongly aware of it before. Consciously or unconsciously, there are things that you especially watch out for as a listener of a language that you know, a native speaker especially. And one of those in English is stress. It's hugely, hugely, hugely important. Lexical stress is something like Chinese tone. Chinese, you're always watching out for tone to make sure you've got the right meaning of the syllable. We're watching out for stress so that we don't understand aerobic when this person meant to say Arabic, right? If they get the stress wrong, we're going to misunderstand. That's lexical. But intonational, we're always watching for intonational stress so we know what are the content words as opposed to function words and what is important to the speaker that we have to watch out for, especially in order to react quickly, because when we're communicating, we always need to react quickly. That means we're collecting clues as we go along to make sure that we react in time and we react correctly. And stress is one of the biggest, most important cues for an English speaker. We're always watching for that. As soon as somebody stresses something that we think, it's not that important, why did they stress that? You're throwing the listener off. To throw them off means confusing them. That means they're now trying to concentrate on something that's not important when they should be concentrating on these stressed elements that tell them what your point is and what is important to you and what is therefore important to the listener. So be really careful about putting the stress on the wrong word. I get the feeling this is something, again, that you were not taught previously very much. Teachers just let it by. 背重音是为了考试. But if you put the stress on the wrong place when you're speaking, probably nobody ever corrected you, or they very seldom corrected you. Or if they did, they didn't tell you the reason. But now you know you're really confusing your listener, even if the listener doesn't realize why it was so important. We do it 凭感觉. We do it based on what System 1 is doing. Okay, System 1 is running the show here mainly. So, in this sentence, the term voiced H is sometimes used for this sound. Okay, is sometimes used for this sound, not used for this sound. Okay?
The term murmured H is preferable.
Okay, preferable or preferable? I say preferable. Preferable is not wrong. Okay?
The symbol for this sound is the symbol for this sound is
H with a hook.
H with the hook.
Okay, all right, so please put that in your notes, Amy, because you stress this a lot. And that's often something we don't want to stress. Sometimes we do stress it. When do we stress this?
In contrast.
That's right, exactly. Or this 基本上是一个直式代名词，对不对? I want this one. In that case, you're going to stress it. When you're pointing to something, that means it's important. So we stress it based on it's important. If we're pointing to it, that means this one and not another one. Okay, so let's make sure we understand. We sometimes call this sound of H between two vowels a voiced H. But he said it's not a normal kind of voicing like or G. It's not quite voiced in that sense. But we do have some kind of voicing, and we're going to call it murmured. And you can see that in the lower left-hand corner. It's a murmured H. We're learning now about murmurs or breathy voice as well. We can call it either one. They're the same thing. And we have a special symbol for it. It's H with that little hook on it pointing to the right. Okay? Any questions? Let's go on.
Bella, learn to distinguish between the murmur sound
Watch the D, murmured sound.
murmured sound as in
This one is not now, it's
as in aha,
Okay, not in.
in
Good.
aha,
Aha, aha. Mine is pretty voiceless. Aha, I can make it more voiced, but I separate them so much. Aha. Sounds pretty voiceless to me. How about you? Aha, aha. I'm slowing down because I'm surprised and I want a long, dramatic reaction. Aha. But in ahead, I probably voice it more. It's shorter. If you have too much time, you have time to devoice it you have time to open up your vocal folds and make it voiceless again. So aha for me, aha, I don't have much voicing. Ahead, I do have more. Okay?
And the voiceless sound as at the beginning of
As.
an as.
Yeah, train yourselves. Us is not wrong, but you've all learned us as the normal pronunciation for as. The citation pronunciation is as with a Z. Everyone, as. And when you read an H, once more, everybody, just breathe. Listen. No, you're doing it. You didn't listen. 太急了, okay? Just like 眼镜上哈气这样子. 你不会对眼镜, right? Everyone? Good, okay.
As at the beginning of an English word such as heart.
Good.
The murmured sound is like a sigh produced while breathing heavily.
Good. And sigh, she had a nice pause after it because what's omitted here?
Which is
Which is, right, keep going.
take a deep breath.
Not dip,
Deep.
right?
Take a deep breath and see how long you can make
And
first.
see how long.
And see how long.
Watch the stress here. Not see how long, 乖乖的, and see how long.
And see how long you can make first ha and then
There's no ah there.
h, and then
Try it again.
h.
No, you're putting velar friction in there. No, I think a lot of you do that because basically the h sound in Mandarin, even though you don't usually use it in Taiwan Mandarin, 它基本上 underlyingly it's a velar fricative. So 好, you don't say 好, you say 好. 可是在底层它还是个 velar fricative, voiceless velar fricative. So don't carry that over into English because the English H is not velar. It absolutely is not velar. Unless there's a velar sound after it, we may make it more velar. But 基本上底层是根本没有发音固定的发音位置. It completely depends on the sound that comes after it. It's totally flexible. It just depends on what comes after. So 不管 if it's voiceless or voiced. And by the way, when do you use whether or even he doesn't want to go, even if he doesn't want to go, this 就让我想到这个东西。台湾人常会漏掉这个东西。Even you don't want to go, you have to go. It should be even if. I don't care he doesn't want to go. It should be I don't care whether or not he wants to go. All right, that just reminded me of that while I was doing this. So for H, 不管是 voiceless 还是 voiced, don't make it velar. So voiceless, everybody, again, just breathing. Don't tense your tongue. Don't make it very 紧，完全放松. Everybody, just your whole 发音器官放松. There, good. Good. Now let's just voice it a little bit, but don't get all tense. Good. Now it sounds right. All right, I'm being picky about little things because 它这里的重点就是这些东西. And you need to have the right foundation, otherwise you're going to end up in the wrong place. Go on.
In the voiceless sound,
Good.
the air from the lungs escapes very rapidly, so that this sound cannot. So that the sound.
You may notice everybody's doing this. Go on.
So that the sound
Good.
cannot be prolonged to any great extent.
All right, everybody understands this? How long can you make an H sound last? A voiceless H, try. Take a deep breath and then try to make an H as long as you can. I'm done. If you are very careful about it and you're paying attention, like if you're swimming and you're controlling your breathing, you can make it longer. But you're going to run out quickly with a normal H because so much air comes out for this voiceless H. You're just breathing. The air is going to come out really fast and you will exhaust your air supply pretty quickly. Go on.
But you can make the murmur sound last much longer.
All right, you're going, but you can make the murmured, that's where stress is. 重点是 murmured. But you can make the, everyone? Continue. Murmured sound. All right, try it again.
But you can make the murmur.
又太高了, but you can make.
But you can make the murmured sound last much longer.
Right.
As the flow of air from the lungs is slowed down by the vibrating vocal folds.
Good.
Note that can be said on a range of different pitches.
Said.
said,
Range. It's
range,
just like change, everybody. Range.
range,
Good. And also, you can make longer because the air is slowed down by the vibrating. Everyone vibrating. For range, make sure that you slow down a bit. Don't say, can be said on a range of. The vowel will come out wrong because A is long in the first place. It's also a content word. So please slow down when you come to A, especially before nasal. Can be said, pause, on a range, it's an important word. On a range of different pitches. Everyone? We're on the last two lines of the paragraph. On a range of different pitches. Very good. The other thing is the content. So we tried we run out of breath pretty fast. Let's try a voiced one. See if you can make it longer or if it naturally seems to last longer. Voice it. All right. You should find it can last quite a bit longer because, why? Can you explain it? Explain it physiologically. All right, and can you go into more detail about the vibration of the vocal folds? What do we have going on physiologically?
Because when we are vibrating, the glottis is smaller.
It's smaller, right? The glottis is smaller and it's opening and closing. That slows down the air. So the opening, the glottis is smaller, and the vibrating is slowing down the progression of the air. It's a smaller opening. Let's go on. And it says that can be said on a range of different pitches, and we know that because it's voiced, it's a continuant, so everything is fine, okay?
Carol, now say her before a vowel. When you say ha, when you say ha,
All right. Put more voicing in, so it
ha,
sounds like you're in a 气喘的感觉.
ha, ha, you'll probably find that the breathiness extends into the vowel.
Okay, probably. Actually, native speakers do say probably, but when we're reading, let's say probably.
Probably.
Good. And then the breathiness is going to extend into the vowel. And you'll find that because we have different markings for a breathy consonant and a breathy vowel. We have different markings. And in theory, you should be able to keep them separate, but usually they blend into each other. So if we have a breathy H, we're going to hear breathiness in the ah as well. So ha, ha, ah 的时候就一样有这个 breathiness 的现象. Okay, let's go on.
But try to make only the first part of the syllable breathy and produce regular voicing at the end.
All right, now we're going to try to cut them into pieces so we don't have breathiness with the ah as a kind of training. So make a breathy H and then a regular ah with no breathiness. Try. Ha, ha, ha. You have to quickly stop the breathiness before the vowel. It takes some practice. Let's go on.
Finally, try to produce the sequence ha after a stop consonant.
After a 复合词.
After a stop consonant.
Good. So for example, let's try a D. Da, da, da. And this is a typical Indian sound. In the languages of India, you're going to find this really commonly. Go on.
Murmured stops of this kind.
Murmured stops of this kind.
Murmured stop of this kind.
Oh, yes.
Oh, murmured stops of this kind occur in Hindi
Not in.
occur in Hindi
Good.
and in many other languages spoken in
Many
India.
other languages.
In many other languages spoken in India.
Good. In India.
In India.
Very good.
In India.
Good.
Okay. These sounds will be discussed more fully in the next section. But we can note here that
Stop it stops, but.
but we can note here that in murmured stops.
But we can note here that.
In murmured stops, the
In
murmur
murmured stops.
in murmured
Once
stops
more. In murmured stops.
in murmured stops.
You'll go D. I'm getting really picky, getting every
Okay.
detail. In murmured stops.
In murmured stop,
Very good.
The murmur occurs only during the release of the stop.
Stop. Good.
There must be a comparatively high rate of flow of air out of the lungs to produce murmur, and this cannot happen during the stop closure.
Okay, good. So it's kind of hard to turn off the murmur or breathiness. They're the same thing, just before the vowel. You can do it, but it's a little hard to do. Let's go on.
Vivian, it is fairly easy to produce the required flow rate for flow rate for murmur during a vowel. Some languages contrast plain and murmured vowels. Table 6.5 shows a set of words in Gujarati.
Good.
Another language spoken in India.
In India. Okay, make sure that everybody use linking to get the right nasal, especially before, well, not especially. If you're using linking, it's because the next sound is usually a vowel. So in India. And then you won't say in India or something like that. So in India. Good.
Murmured sounds are indicated by placing two dots below the symbol.
All right, here we've got a new symbol. Murmured sounds, 它没有分是母音还是子音, but if it's a murmured sound, we put two dots under the symbol, and that shows it's murmured or breathy. Go on.
In Gujarati, the contrast between murmured or breathy voice sounds and regular modal voice
It's okay.
modal voice can occur in both consonants and vowels. In the first row, you can hear three-way contrast.
Remember the continuation rise, yeah.
Contrast between a murmured vowel. Between a murmured vowel.
Can you link it?
Between a
Right.
murmured vowel, a murmured release of a stop.
Of
a stop.
Right.
And a word that has only modal voice.
All right, this is sort of the end, pretty much the end for now of breathy murmured sounds. We're going to listen to the files and take note of the vocabulary and the symbols introduced here. First of all, modal, it looks like a fancy technical word, but what does it mean? What does modal mean? It's really easy, and you're going to go, ugh, when you hear. It's just plain voicing. 没有任何修饰，没有任何变化的 voicing is called modal voicing. That means it's not breathy, it's not creaky, it's not anything special, it's just very plain voicing. 很纯正的 voicing is called modal voicing. And we've also learned the new symbol, which is two dots below the symbol. And we've got this table here where we have a word for outside. See on table 6.5, let's listen. Here we go. I want you to listen carefully. Listen for the breathiness or the murmur in the vowel. So you can see the two dots are under the vowel ah. Listen.
Bar, 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 bar.
That sounds like an implosive B to me. It's strongly voiced, so it may not be, but it sounds awfully implosive. But let's focus on the vowel.
Bar, bar, bar,
Bar, bar, bar.
bar.
Okay? Let's listen to another word that has breathiness on the what? The breathiness is not on the vowel, but it's on the initial stop. Let's listen to that.
Bar, bar, bar.
They're putting the breathiness on the consonant. It's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. So if you can't tell, it's okay. But
Bar.
listen to these on your own time because the links are all on page 4, chapter 6 links. Just go to the very top link where it says Lattifogad's own site, and then you'll find a list of links with the sounds, or you can use the CD-ROM with your book. Either one is fine. So let's listen to the third one, which has neither breathiness on neither the consonant nor the vowel.
Bar. 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 Bar.
That one sounds implosive to me. All of these sound implosive. Okay, let's just listen to the three.
Bar. Bar. Bar.
First one.
Bar.
Okay, that one you can hear quite a difference.
Bar. Bar.
They stop it before the vowel, and then finally again.
Bar. 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 Bar.
Let's listen to the second row. You were going to hear it on eh first with breathiness on the vowel, and then without.
Mel.
Listen.
Mel. Mel. Mel.
And then we'll listen to the same syllable without breathiness on the vowel.
Mel.
Okay, that time it was fairly clear, the contrast.
Mel. Mel. Mel.
That's the plain one. All right, listen to these on your own time and get your ears accustomed to the new sounds that we're learning. So with this, we're to the end of breathiness or murmured sounds. Remember, they mean the same thing. And then you've got the illustration in the lower left-hand corner of the pictures on page 148. So the vocal folds are partly open. We have some degree of voicing with a lot of wind coming through at the same time. We're going on now to creaky voice, which you're all familiar with. And where do we have creaky voice in Mandarin again? Where do we have creaky voice in Mandarin? Everybody remember? We discussed it last semester. Anybody remember? You have it all the time, every day. Maybe about a quarter of the syllables that you pronounce are in creaky voice. Nobody remembers. How do you say I? Say it a few times. What do you discover? Do you notice anything? I can hear it here. What do you observe about it? Creaky voice, right? And it's due to what? Is it due to the w sound or the o sound? No, it's due to the tone, to the third tone. Third tone in Mandarin is creaky voice. So my experience is that my students are experts in creaky voice. You're very good at it because you do it all the time, every day. So once you realize that what you're doing is creaky voice, then you get very good at recognizing it and producing it in other contexts as well, because you've got it in Mandarin. Anything from our native language, as long as we know what it is, we're usually pretty good at, because our ears are already listening to it automatically. Just like for tone, you're very good at tone. If you're learning a new tone language, you will pay special attention to tone. You're usually very good at it. You'll be much better than, in general, than speakers of non-tone languages. So creaky voice. Let's go.
Sylvie, in creaky voice, which is
Okay, don't say voice. Voice.
voice.
Yeah, make the all really short. Everyone, voice. Voice. Not voice. It's voice. Voiced. Voiceless. Unvoiced. Voicelessness. Voice. Good.
In creaky voice, which is the other stage of the glottis illustrated in figure 6.6.
Okay, I'm going to be picky. So first of all, which is not stressed. And I don't say hu. Hu is not wrong. Many people do say hu. I don't. So which is where is our word that gives us contrast here in this phrase? Not other. Other, yeah, 吐舌头. So other is contrastive. So that's what we're going to stress. Glottis is also very important, and I have a tap here. I don't say glottis, I say glottis. So this is how I would read it. In creaky voice, and voice is repeated, that's why I don't stress it, otherwise it would be stressed. In creaky voice, which is the other state of the glottis illustrated in figure 6.6, tonic stress is on the second 6, and glottis is also stressed because it's important. In creaky voice, which is the other state of the glottis illustrated, which is 省略了，要停顿哦, which is of the glottis illustrated in figure 6.6. Can you try that?
In creaky voice,
Not creaky, everyone creak. Okay, and this is again a little off topic, but we sometimes do make it into crick. There are a few words where E becomes I in English, but only due to dialect or colloquial usage. One I may have mentioned before is creatures, which means, what does creatures mean? 生物 is wrong. Why is it not 生物? Does the dictionary say that? Anybody have a dictionary you can check? If they do, it's misleading you. It's not 生物. Because are flowers and vegetables creatures? No. Amy? Yes. Creatures only includes animals. So if your dictionary says 生物, please put that in your notes. Write to the publisher. Because it does not include plants. Creatures in English is only animals, including humans, but not plants. All right, so creatures, we have a colloquial dialect word for creatures, namely critters, C-R-I-T-T-E-R-S. 那个单数也有. Oh, look at that cute little critter. And critter is a dialect form of creature that we use as an endearing kind of term. A term of endearment. 就觉得它很可爱的时候，或者想开玩笑的时候 we'll say, oh, look at all those critters. 哇，一大堆动物在那边跑来跑去. So creature, critter, and creak is another word that we do this with sometimes for a certain meaning of creak. Creak is but we sometimes say, I have a crick in my back. You've heard that, Amy? What's it mean? It's a real tough one to translate, but the situation happens often enough anywhere in the world. I have a creak in my back. 闪到腰. Yeah, 闪到腰, that's a good translation. 我闪到腰了. I have a crick in my back. You can say creak, but we usually use the dialect, kind of humorous term, crick. I have a crick in my back. 我闪到腰了. All right, so creak, crick, creature, critter. In both cases, they're dialect. 都是英文的方言字。然后用的时候是有点好笑、好玩、有点幽默. So, when you read the word in a formal context, you still need the full E sound in creaky voice. And that was the bell. So we'll finish after break. Thank you. In the past, we often had students perform skits and things like from 电视影集之类的 or 会模仿 audio files 之类的. We did that for 发音实习. But we found that we just don't have time for that. And that's the kind of thing I do in 大一英文 and in 英听. So it has turned out that what is our main 发音实习 in this class? Reading, and you get picked on and picked on and picked on, and then I guess eventually get used to it. But that's the way you improve, because those are things mainly you were probably not aware of before. You're doing things subconsciously out of habit, and you think they're okay because nobody ever told you otherwise before, but now we're picking and picking. It's not just for you, although I'm trying to help you improve. But it's for you to also to understand what's going on in English better, which I have learned through a process of hearing students do things often incorrectly, according to the way I speak, compared to the way I speak anyway. So you become, number one, first of all, it helps you improve. 2, you become more aware of these things. And 3, in addition to being more aware of the things I tell you about, you become more sensitive, what? To everything. Because you get picked on so much and we're looking at such tiny things, in theory they're tiny, but for a listener they're not tiny. Because they affect the whole emotional state, the whole understanding, the whole interaction will depend on a lot of these details that you either put in or fail to put in or you put in wrong. They're not as tiny as they seem when we're picking on them in class. But helping you improve, helping you become more aware of these things, and 3rd, you become sensitive in general, not just to the things I tell you about, but you're going to start noticing everything in any kind of language at all, and things that are non-linguistic as well. Sounds around the house, you will start noticing. And one of the funny things that struck me, and partly it's due to musical and also to phonetic training, was I have a zither in my bedroom. I have it 是个古筝，以前会弹古筝. And when I sneezed, I had a cold. I sneezed really loud, and the 古筝 started vibrating. So, hachoo! And things like that are really fun when you understand why it happens. So it's like I have a bunch of musical instruments in the house. You've got this living environment of you that's going around you, that's reacting to you as you make sounds yourself. And that wasn't even a linguistic sound. That was a sneeze. But obviously a sneeze has a lot of different, what? Frequencies, yeah. 我的那个打喷嚏有很多不同的频率, and many of them caused a resonance in the strings of the 古筝 in the same room, even though it was in a case. 它是装在那个很大的那盒子里面，可是还是在那边，它震动的 sympathetic vibration 还蛮厉害的，好久了。So that's just an example. You start to become sensitive to everything around you, especially in language, but even in non-linguistic things, you start to view them and analyze them in acoustic terms and hear what's going on more, which means actually you can live a fuller life. Because do you sometimes get bored? Do you sometimes get bored? 会觉得很无聊吗? I think it's mainly young people. You don't. Why do you not get bored?
I don't know. I just feel that there are so many things to do. So.
That's the point I'm working up to. Sometimes we fail to change activities. We stick to one thing too long, like staring at the computer too long. That's probably what a lot of us do, right? Or at our phones or whatever it is. But if you can just pull yourself away from whatever is getting a little dull, you will find there are just so many things in the world to appreciate just by observing them and experiencing them, because life is all about the little things. Don't ever think that you're waiting up for this time in your life when you're going to meet the love of your life and you'll be happy forever and then start a family, I'll have a wonderful house and a great car and some beautiful kids. Don't be waiting for that time, because life is going on in the meantime. Every little thing and every second of life that you're living is the life that you think you're waiting for. It's right now. It's very hard to live in the present. But if you are sensitized to more things in your environment, different teachers will help you become sensitive to different things. In your literature classes, now you're becoming more sensitive to, for example, metaphors or books, discussions of literary history, of history in general, of all kinds of things. You get something from all of your classes. From your math classes, you start seeing numbers in your environment. You find that actually everything can be described in a number that happens. It's pretty hard to do, but it could be in theory. So math training will give you that feeling that actually the world is made up of numbers. Every kind of training makes you a little more sensitive to something else in the world, which helps you live a fuller life. And that's the big difference, I think, between an educated person and a well-educated person and a less educated person. A less educated person probably needs something like Disneyland to really give them the stimulation they want. 很刺激的东西要玩这个，好像那种非常刺激的 rides in an amusement park, or maybe get drunk in a crazy party or something like that. But the more educated you are, the more you can get all the stimulation you need just from your environment, right? So the third point is overall sensitivity. That leads to greater understanding of things around you. You can suddenly identify things, say, oh, that's because, and you actually have a much richer life. All right, so it started out as discussion of what is the 发音那个习作的部分，实习的部分. And that is the corrections while we're reading, because that at least is relating to the content that we're trying to learn at the same time. All right, we're going to continue talking about creaky voice, which we've discovered all of us do regularly when we speak Mandarin. Let's go.
Sylvie, in creaky voice, which is the other stage of a glottis illustrated in figure 6.6, the arytenoid cartilages are tightly together.
Tightly, 不要 tightly, it's tightly.
Tightly together, so that the together,
Good.
so that the vocal folds can vibrate only at the anterior end, the small opening at the top of a photograph.
Good. At the
top.
okay, and small.
small,
Look at my mouth. Small. Small. Not small. Small. I know we use this symbol because 几乎是没有 rounding, 因为 L 的关系. And as we noticed last semester, as I posted last semester, I distinguish between all and all. 我这两个我有区别，我是很少数的. So that may be one reason that I want less rounding, but other native speakers do the same thing. The first one is all, and the second one is all. For me, I don't need you to learn that one. 因为那是我个人我出生长大的那个环境里面刚好我们会区别这两个. Not everybody from Minnesota does. Wisconsin, that area, some people do, but many don't. But what I'm saying is I have more rounding with all, but with all, just A plus L or LL, I have very, very little rounding. So watch all. And that makes it sound native-like to me. It's not just me. It's American, general American. So all. Yeah, don't bother rounding it. All. 先发呆 all. 那就好了. Okay? That was all. And no, that's not all. There's more. Small. Small. Everybody's small. Yeah, don't try to round it too much. It'll come out more British, which is not bad. That's good for Jerome. Small, small, small is British. American is small. Anterior. At the anterior end. Everyone, at the, watch the stop, it stops. At the anterior end. All right, don't make it syllable timed. We want stress timing. At the has to be fast. Those are function words. At the anterior end. Okay, and I link anterior end. Anterior end. 因为 end 是母音开头. Another thing is tightly. Remember we talked about Canadian raising last semester? 还记得吗? 那 tightly 就是个例子. Let's just use the adjective form tight and compare it to tied. 这个就有个很明显的一个对比. This one is tight and this one is tied. Or we could also use this spelling and meaning, the same thing. So because this is voiceless at the end, we have raising. It's not I, it's I. Everyone, tight. Tight. Tightly. It's very natural. You don't have to do anything strange. Tight, no. Just a tight, tight, I. 非常的自然. Once more, tight. Tied. It's longer and it's I, it's not I. Once more, tight. Tied. Tightly. We don't have tidely, but you could make it up, all right? Okay, so let's look at the state of the glottis illustrated in 6.6 on the lower right-hand corner. And you'll see that the vocal folds are tightly together or they open and apart. They're tightly together, except there is a little opening where? At the top or bottom of the picture? At the top. And the top of the picture is what? Is it the front or the back? It's the front. So in the back, the arytenoid cartilages, they're keeping the vocal folds tightly together, but at the top, which is the front, 还是有个小洞洞. And we're going to vibrate that when we make a creaky sound. So it's that front part that's partially open, and then we're going to creak. And that's what's going on in the glottis. Okay, let's continue.
Note that the vocal folds appear to be much shorter in this photograph. This is partly because the posterior portion at the bottom of a photograph is not visible when the arytenoid cartilages are pulled together.
Good. Look back at the picture. It's all dark down there. 因为在影子里面 arytenoid cartilages 并拢在一起的时候，下面就很黑了，看不到了. So that's why the vocal folds look much shorter than they do right above, right? 一方面是因为那个比例本来就不是很好，不是很准。可是另外一个原因是那个 arytenoid cartilages 并拢的时候，下面就不会显示成白色，就变黑黑的。All right? One.
But it is also the case that in creaky voice, the folds are not stretched from front to back as they are on higher pitches. It is not possible to make accurate measurements of the length of the vibrating folds in these lengths
Good.
of the vibrating folds in these photographs, as the glottis is at varying distances from the camera, but this probably accounts for
Not but this, but this.
probably accounts for only a small
Not only, only.
on,
Odo the O, only.
only
Yeah, you have kind of an O sound to your O, which is more British. So odo, only.
only
Right.
only a small proportion
Right.
small proportion of
Proportion.
proportion
R. Proportion.
proportion
That's better.
of the variation in length apparent in the photographs.
Now he's trying to explain why it looks so much shorter. Partly it's because 他拍这个照片的那个距离跟其他的有点不一样，可能比较近还是比较远？可能比较远一点，所以显示比较小一点。Another reason is because the arytenoid cartilages are in the shadow. They're dark, we can't see them very clearly. But those are not the only reasons. There's another reason. It's because when we are making such a low-pitched sound, and creaks are very, very low, 它们是低到个别的 pulses 都数得出来。可以去数。If we made a recording of it, we could probably count them just with our ear. We wouldn't have to use a computer program to do it. Being so low, the vocal folds are not being stretched like they are in this one, where they are being voiced. Upper left-hand corner 看起来比较长，当然是那个距离啊，排的那个距离应该比较近。可是同时，因为是 voiced, they are being tensed, 就是很紧绷，所以会拉长。So the higher we go, the longer they're going to be stretched. 这一点很重要 ，make sure you understand. Pitch 越高，它就会撑得越长、越紧。Just like with a rubber band, if you take a 橡皮筋 and then it's very loose, and then you strum it, it'll go dong, 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 dong. But then you stretch it like this. We'll put it on a nail here and hold it here, and then we'll strum with this hand. It'll go dong, 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 right? Because it's being stretched long, it's being made thinner and tighter, more tense. And that's what's happening with the vocal folds. So for a creaky voice, what is the state of the vocal folds? Are they being stretched long, thin, and tight, or are they shorter and looser? They're shorter and looser, and that's another reason why they look smaller. There are many reasons. 比例是本来就不一样了, but still, that's only part of the reason. Let's go on.
Creaky voice is a very low-pitched sound that occurs at the end of falling intonation.
At the what?
At the ends.
Right.
At the ends of falling intonation.
Fall.
Falling.
对，跟 small 一样，已经出现3次, so you can put this in your notes. Falling.
Falling intonations for some speakers of English.
Good. Some 中音放对了, but it's not intonations. It's in what? We need a schwa there. Intonations. Good. And another one is that occurs. We need a tap there for American. Everyone, that occurs. Instead of saying that occurs, we'll say that occurs. We're going to link it with a tap. That occurs. Once more. That occurs. Good.
You can probably learn.
Probably. Everyone, probably. Please be careful when you're reading from a text. Probably we do use in conversation, but probably.
You can probably learn to produce it by singing the lowest note that you can, and then trying to go even lower.
Even your N?
Even lower.
Right.
Creaky voice sounds may also be called.
Also. Same thing again.
Also be called laryngealized.
Very good. Okay, laryngalized. Larynx is 喉，它就喉化了。Laryngalized. Everyone, laryngalized. So we have 2 names for the lower left-hand picture on 148. What kind of vowels, what kind of sounds do we find in Gujarati? And by the way, 要留意这些语言的名称，因为小考的时候会考哪一个语言有哪一种音为特色，所以 Gujarati 要留意。 因为考试小考会出现。All right, I don't want you to 死背 a lot of meaningless information, but it's good to know a representative language that has, for example, murmured or breathy sounds. So I just gave you the answer. For the picture in the lower left-hand corner on 148, we have two names for that kind of sound. They are either called breathy sounds or murmured sounds. Now we also have two terms for the sound that we learned right after the breathy sounds, namely creaky voice, and the sounds are also what? Called laryngalized. Creaky voice, laryngalized. 同一个东西, because we're making the vocal folds very stiff, got a little hole towards the top, a little opening, and they're very tense, creating a very low-pitched creak. All right, this paragraph clear? We're going to talk about some languages that have creaky or laryngalized sounds next.
Wendy, in some languages, laryngalization is
Laryngalization 英式比较会用 ization 是比较英式的用法. In American, we usually say laryngalization.
laryngalization is used to distinguish one
To what?
distinguish one sound from another.
Not sound.
Sound
Right.
from another. Hausa and many other Chadic languages of northern Nigeria.
Of what?
Northern.
Huh?
Northern.
That's better. Northern, 两个 R. The TH plus the two R's. Northern. Not nor. You sound like you're from New York. Northern. Not New York. All right, New York. Northern, and we live in northern Taiwan. We need that word. Northern again.
Northern. Northern.
Make the second R more clearer.
Northern.
Not northern. Northern.
Northern.
There we go. Everyone, northern. Okay, I'm teaching you one dialect. I want you to learn one dialect consistently. It's to make you more sensitive and aware of what you're doing. I want you to be consistent with this for this class. If you want to do another dialect on your own, that's fine. But learn this dialect consistently for this class. All right, northern.
Northern.
Once more. Northern.
Northern.
That's pretty good.
Nigeria
Nigeria, right?
Nigeria distinguish between two palatal approximants.
To what? To palatal.
Approximants.
That's better.
One has regular voicing rather than the rather like the English sound at the beginning of yacht.
Very good. Everyone, yacht. Yacht. Yoting. Yacht. Yacht. Okay, so the point is he wants you to make a y sound. We know that that's a palatal, it's the only palatal sound that we have. It's a palatal approximant. Go ahead.
At the beginning of yacht, and the other has creaky voice. The IPA diacritic
Right.
is the IPA diacritic to indicate creaky voice is
A tilde. Tilde. We've used this before for what? Nasalization, but where do we put it for nasalization? Above the symbol. And we also put it in the middle of a symbol for what? Dark L, very good. So it goes right in the middle of the L for velarization in that case. So above the symbol, nasalization. In the middle, velarization. But for velarization, we can use a different symbol. Let's look here, velarization. Can you find velarization in your list? It's in the inside front cover, second column in the middle. What is that symbol? It's in the middle column and about the middle of the column, inside front cover. What is the symbol for velarized? Okay, it's a small gamma. We call that gamma, and it's a r sound. R. That's a voiced velar fricative. So we have a symbol for a voiced velarized secondary articulation. Remember secondary articulation. Here though, we're talking about a tilde. Above the symbol, it's nasal. In the middle of the symbol, it's velarized, but we've got another velarization symbol that I wanted to point out. And then below the symbol, it is Creaky voice or laryngalized. Either one is fine. Okay? Go.
Placed under the symbol. Hausa or the orthography.
Where's the stress? You've got the right stress for the adjective orthographic. But here it's a noun.
Orthography.
Very good. Good. Just like which word? Photography. Yeah, it's an easy way to remember it.
Hausa orthography use an apostrophe
orthography 后面那个字.
use.
One more step.
Uses.
No, everybody uses. All right. We are processing these endings with a different part of our brain. You do and I do too. When I'm speaking, it happens naturally because my system 1 is thoroughly trained as a native speaker. So I won't say use for this word. I just would not say it normally. Now, maybe you can find a mistake in the videos if you look through them when it might happen, but it's rare. So a native speaker, when we're speaking, we will not normally make these mistakes. When writing, I make them all the time. When I'm typing on Facebook or in an email, I drop these endings or I use the wrong ending. As I told you, ed, ing, I mix them up all the time. Not because I would ever mix them up in speech. 说话, I don't think I would ever make that mistake. But I make them constantly when I'm typing because my system 1 is taking over and there's a part of the brain that controls the endings that's different from the part of the brain that chooses the words, the stem of the word or the root of the word. It's 2 different parts of the brain. And sometimes the part of the brain that's doing the endings gets sloppy. I'm just going to throw an ending up there. I don't care which one it is. So I often type ed when I mean ing, or I'll miss an s. And I don't do it when speaking normally. You do it also when you speak because you have to concentrate harder. It takes longer to get that information from that part of the brain. This is an important point. It's worth putting in your notes. There's a whole book about it by Steven Pinker. He's a former disciple of Chomsky. He's written a lot of popular books on linguistics, many of them quite interesting. I don't agree with everything he says, but he has a book called Words and Rules. My field is 构词形态学, and that's a really great book. I really, really like that book called Words and Rules by Steven Pinker. If you want to learn about this, he talks about this, not in detail about the brain, but he points out that it's a different part of the brain that's taking care of morphological endings in words in English and in other languages as well. So you will see these mistakes constantly. If you look on the internet, native speakers typing English, it's not just me, I'm representative. We make these mistakes all the time, but not in speaking. So you need to train yourself to slow down and put them in because they take more time and effort to retrieve the file. Okay, uses
an apostrophe
Good.
before the symbol for the corresponding voiced sound, thus contrasting y and
How do we say y?
and apostrophe y.
How can we say it? Let's make the laryngalized sound. Make a creaky voiced y. You can do it. Yeah. Y. Remember y sound. It's not I.
Y.
Y. Okay, so y. And creaky is y. Yeah, you're excellent at it. You're very, very good. Apostrophe you read beautifully. But the one thing is th. You need to watch your th one day. The, not the. Okay? Go.
The Hausa letters y and y correspond to IPA.
These 2 symbols. So we've got a tilde under the J. Remember, this is where a new place for the tilde. We've put it in 2 other places before with different meanings. Okay?
Try differentiating between the
That was okay, but make it a little clearer. Differentiating.
differentiating. Chi.
Everyone differentiating. Again.
Differentiating.
Good. Nice.
Try differentiating
Good.
between the laryngalized and
Laryngalized. Continuation rise.
laryngalized and non-laryngalized sounds
Excellent.
in Hausa words. In the Hausa words, yeah,
And?
yeah.
All right, let's see if we can find that and play the files. You have to listen carefully.
Yeah.
Everyone? Yeah. That's pretty normal and easy. Let's try the laryngalized initial palatal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Try it. Yeah. 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 Okay? You're very good at that. Your ears are great at this. Okay? Good.
which are included on the CD with the other Hausa words discussed earlier in this chapter.
Excellent. Very nice reading. Next.
A slightly more common use of laryngalization is to distinguish one stop from another.
Everyone stop. This is
Stop.
an ah sound, not stop. It's stop.
Stop.
American. Okay.
Stop. Hausa and many other West African languages have
Say
voiced
languages.
languages. Languages have voiced stops, but contrasting with the laryngalized stops.
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 Not stops. Stops.
Stops.
There we go.
Which are sometimes implosives. In these sounds,
In these sounds,
everyone,
the S is pronounced as Z. So not these, all right? In these sounds. Good. Okay.
the creaky voice
The what?
the creaky voice is most evident not during the
Evident. Pause. We've got a big
Evident.
different clause here. A very different clause.
evident not during the
Not. Was a nut. Not.
not during the stop closure itself.
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 Stop it. Stops. Everyone. Itself. 不是 itself. Itself. 滋滋滋的呲呲 it's. Everyone. Itself. Good.
But during the first part of the following vowel.
Good.
Similar sounds occur in some Native American languages.
All right. So we can also have a contrast between b and d and d. And in other languages as well of West Africa, not just Hausa, and also in what other languages? Native American languages. They have a lot of the interesting sounds that we've learned about in this chapter in Native American languages, not just North America, North, Central, South America. You'll find a lot of these. And wow, look at this really familiar title. And we're going to have a somewhat easier job, but we're going to learn some additional things. We're going to learn some finer distinctions about VOT. Let's go.
Tina, voice onset time. We saw earlier.
Saw. Saw, not so. Saw. Good.
We saw earlier that the terms voiced and voiceless.
Voiceless. Everyone, voiceless.
Voiceless.
Yeah, we don't say voiceless. It's voiceless.
Voiceless.
Right.
Refer to the state of the glottis during glottis.
I don't say is. I use a schwa there. Glottis.
Glottis. During a given articulation. Articulation.
Good.
We also saw that the terms aspirated and unaspirated
And unaspirated.
and
因为
aspirated,
un 是有对比, so we're going to stress that. Try it again.
aspirated and
Can
unaspirated,
you stress un? Make it high.
un,
There. Try it again.
aspirated and unaspirated.
There you go.
Refer to the presence of or absence of a period of voicelessness.
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 Ness.
Voicelessness.
Ness. A
Voicelessness
continuation rise, yeah.
during and after the release of an articulation.
Articulation. Right. Very good. So the difference between ga, and ka, that's the pause they're talking about after the release of the stop. Go on.
The interval between interval. The interval between the release of a closure and the start of the voicing is called the voice onset time.
Voice onset time. This is a compound, everyone. Voice onset time.
Usually abbreviate VOT. Abbreviated.
Good.
VOT.
Good.
The easiest way. The easiest way to visualize VOT.
Visualize. Here it's a j. Remember, it's not so common in English, but here we need it. In the middle of a word, it's more common, like measure, pleasure. Everyone visualize. Not V, it's V. Visualize. Again.
To visualize.
Not V. V. Uh-huh.
To visualize.
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 All right, listen to me finish my model before you jump in. Visualize. No? You're saying V. We want V. Listen again. Visualize.
Visualize.
There you go. Visualize. Not V. 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 Uh-huh. Vis. Sort of like fish. Say fish.
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 It's not fish. Okay, fish.
Fish.
Good. Now make it vish.
Fish.
Now voice the sh part. Vish. Vish.
Fish.
Yeah. Vish.
Fish.
Not E. I. Vish.
Visual.
There we go. Now you're getting it. Visualize.
Visualize.
Okay, don't say E though. Okay?
Visualize.
Pretty good.
VOT is by reference to
Reference.
the reference
就省略那个schwa illusion. Reference.
reference
Not ra. Re.
re,
Okay, I'm being very picky, excuse me. By reference.
by reference to the waveforms of a sound. This is the technique used in chapter 3.
Chapter.
Chapter 3 to discuss the difference between Thai
Discuss the what?
the differences
Differences. Not
differences
D. D.
the
Uh-huh.
differences
There we go. Beautiful.
between Thai and Dai.
Good.
The VOT is measured
Is me.
measured
Right.
in milliseconds.
Not in milliseconds.
In
Very
milliseconds
Good, yeah.
from the spike indicating the release of the stop closure.
Stop closure.
The stop closure to the start of the oscillating
Of the oscillating.
of the oscillating
Good.
pattern
Pattern.
indicating the vibrations of the vocal folds in the vowel. If the voicing begins
Begins. Good.
during the stop closure
Good.
before
That
the
is.
release,
I.e. is that is.
that is, before the release,
Release. Good.
the VOT has a negative value.
All right. Very good. And we've already done this last semester, and that's one reason that I wanted us to do it. We needed it last semester already, but now it's going to come in useful again. And for Sylvie, you need to go to Phonetics 1 and do 3 tutorials on voicing. And Sophie, can you help her with the page number? You can do it a little later. But if you look on Phonetics 1, you will see one of the pages is called 3 tutorials on plosives and voicing, or voicing and plosives, Geleda, in Phonetics 1. There are three tutorials, and they're not difficult at all. They're very easy and very informative, so you might want to do that too. Okay? And we understand what it's saying. So remember, it was a test question. If the voicing starts at about the time of the release of the stop, then what do we have? 0 onset, and if it starts quite a bit after the release of the stop, we have positive and voicelessness with aspiration. If it starts before the release of the stop, we have a negative VOT, and we have pre-voicing. 就是除组之前提前有 voicing. Let's go on.
Miranda. The top part of figure 6.7 shows the waveforms of the first parts of 3 of the Sindhi words in table 6.2. Daru, Taru, and
Is the
Taru.
second one going to be taru? It is in English the way we're using it, but now we have to recalibrate. 我们要重新定我们的那个参考点. So for Cindy, it's going to be different. We have daru, very heavily voiced. Then we have daru, right? And then we have taru, that one's aspirated. Okay, go ahead. I'll dig it up while you're reading.
Name of a district. The dashed line indicates the moment of release of the stop. A time scale centered on that moment is at the bottom of the figure. In the waveform for da, at the top of the figure, there is voicing throughout the closure, the release, and the vowel. This is fully voiced stop that has a negative VOT of minus 130 milliseconds.
Very good. All right, let's just listen. Here's the fully voiced one, not an implosive.
Daru.
All right, that's fully voiced. Then, voiceless, unaspirated. Bottom.
Daru.
Try it, go.
Daru. Daru.
All right, now voiceless, aspirated.
Taru.
Go.
Taru.
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 Okay. And then we have a breathy one. We're not going to do that one yet. All right, so we have a really clear three-way contrast in Cindy that we can hear. So daru, daru, taru. Let's go on.
Jerome, in the next waveform, da.
我现在宣布, you don't have to say your names anymore. I guess we all know them. Go ahead.
In the next waveform, da, there are no voicing vibrations during the closure before the dashed line.
Okay, vibrations is important, but it is actually a compound noun, so there are no voicing vibrations.
There are no voicing vibrations
Right, okay.
during the closure before the dashed line. This is, therefore, a voiceless stop.
Let's look at the waveforms on 152 so we know what they're talking about. So for the, okay, this is a small enough group that it's easier to see. Look here, upper left-hand corner of 152. You see these wavy lines here, and that is the what? Pre-voicing. So everybody, daru. Oh, we just have da, we don't have the ru. So da. And this is the sound. That's exactly what it is. It's and that's what it looks like on a waveform when we have that negative VOT. And here we have a tiny, tiny little burst here, just a little bit of friction from the aspiration. Okay, so we have da. But it should be near 0 VOT. Often it will go up to 20 milliseconds. If it's less than 20 milliseconds, 就不算。20毫秒以内，我们就还是把它当作是 zero onset. Okay, it's not perfectly zero, but 20以内的话，我们就通融. So that one is da. For ta, we have this quite a long period of frication from the aspiration. So ta. This is the h sound. Let's go back. Okay.
The voicing starts very shortly after the closure, the VOT being less than 20 milliseconds.
Milliseconds.
Making this an unaspirated stop. To produce this stop, the vocal
To
folds.
produce this stop,
Good.
Good.
The vocal folds are apart during the whole of the closure period,
Good.
but close together at the moment of release of the closure.
At the moment of release.
At the moment of release
Okay,
of the
moment 不要太重. At the moment of release.
at the moment of release
Good.
of the closure, so that voicing starts as soon as there is.
Voicing starts. They're both equally important. Voicing starts.
So that voicing starts as soon as there is.
As what?
At soon. Soon. Soon.
Make oo really long and very oo. Soon. Not su. You have a little in there. Too much. Maybe it's tension in the lips. Everybody, soon. Not soon. Okay, soon. If you said su de in Chinese, it sounds pretty weird, right? 就是它的速度很快。速度. Do the same in English. Soon. Right. And then I have to tell you a silly 联想 that this brings to mind, because when we make a sound, our brain immediately goes into pattern matching mode. When we hear a sound, our brain is going to match what's coming in with something it has heard before and knows and is familiar with. So when I'm emphasizing su and I'm saying it's soon and not sun, I'm making the u really long. Do you know what sound gets matched in my brain? It's very funny. 是喂猪的声音. Why? Because when you're slopping the hogs, to slop, 就是那个收水，拿收水喂给那个猪吃. If you're slopping the hogs, the way you call to them to have the hogs come over and eat is suey, suey. So when I hear us practicing su, my brain is thinking of hogs getting fed. Suey, S-O-O-E-Y, suey. You can find it on the internet. If you type suey into YouTube, I bet you'll find a video of somebody who's feeding the hogs. Okay, so su du. I just want to tell you the 联想. If you make su really long, that's what a native speaker might think. But it's soon and not sun. And most Taiwanese say sun. And how about 房间? Too short. Room. That's good. Carol? Okay, that's a good model. More rounding for the R though. That's very good. Everyone, room. Room. Soon. Not soon. Soon. There we go. Now you've got it. And how about 月亮? Moon. Okay, now we've got it. Go ahead.
As soon as there is sufficient. As soon as there is sufficient airflow through the glottis. In the middle of the closure.
Okay, don't go down for middle. You have a lot of falling intonations, which makes me think you're at the end. But if you're not at the end, you shouldn't fall. So, at the middle of the in the middle of the closure.
In the middle of the closure.
Good. Closure.
Closure.
Right.
The vocal folds might be.
You went down again.
The vocal folds might be in a position similar to that shown. To that shown in the top right photograph in figure 6.6.
Okay, I don't mean to make you impatient, but similar to that, 省略了什么? Which is, right? So 省略了, we need to pause. I'm going to read this sentence and I'd like you to read it again. All right. To produce this stop, the vocal folds are apart during the whole of the closure period, but close together at the moment of release of the closure, so that the voicing starts as soon as there is sufficient airflow through the glottis. Can you try that one?
To produce this stop, the vocal folds are apart during the whole of the closure period. Closure period.
Right.
But close together at the moment of release of the closure.
At the moment of release.
At the moment of release of the closure.
Release is too long. At the moment of release.
At the moment of release of the closure.
Good.
So that voicing starts as soon as there is sufficient airflow.
Sufficient airflow.
Sufficient airflow through the glottis.
Okay, and it's sufficient 太高了 because you need to leave some space for airflow because that's a 小 tonic. And then I'm going to read the other one. In the middle of the closure, the vocal folds might be in a position similar to that shown in the top right photograph in figure 6.6. I'm going to read both these sentences. Everybody make marks in your textbook where the pauses go, where the rises go, where the continuation rises go. That was really the same thing, even though I said it in two ways. Where the stresses go, where the compound nouns are. I want everybody to take close notes in your textbook because we're going to start with these two sentences next time. So listen. To produce this stop, 因为 stop 是重复的. To produce this stop, the vocal folds are apart during the whole of the closure period, but close together at the moment of release of the closure, so that voicing starts as soon as there is sufficient airflow through the glottis. I did a lot of things in that sentence. All of it sounds natural to a native speaker, but I slowed it down a bit. But there are things that a lot of you have not yet made habit and you're not paying attention to as well as you should. Last sentence in the paragraph. In the middle of the closure, the vocal folds might be in a position similar to that shown in the top right photograph in figure 6.6. One more time. In the middle of the closure, The vocal folds might be in a position similar to that shown in the top right photograph in figure 6.6. I didn't do them exactly the same because the 原理都差不多. So, Jerome, can you do those 2 sentences next time on Wednesday? Good. All right, practice before you come to class, all of you, not just Jerome. Practice those sentences and see if you can read them so you sound like a native speaker. And for Wednesday, what do you need to do? Vowels and consonants, chapter 3, and then 11 will come after that. What else? Dictation. What else? Web page number 4. And let's see, anything else? I think that's about it. We'll see you on Wednesday.